Good morning and welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Holly Anderson, and I have the great honor of serving as president of the Board of Trustees at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. We are so glad you are with us this morning, no matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, however you identify, and whomever you love, know you are welcome here. I have several announcements today. First, I'd like to talk about the church reopening status. Our board and our staff know how important it is to all of us to share Sunday mornings in person and to see everyone face to face in social events, committee meetings, church activities. We are all longing to be together and are looking forward to re-engaging in safe ways in the months ahead. As you know, the Omicron variant significantly slowed our progress toward fully reopening for worship services. In September, our worship services partially reopened in the sanctuary. In December, we were just beginning to have small group activities and meetings in the building. However, later that month, the high number of new COVID cases in the area forced a temporary retreat. The board and the COVID-19 task force monitor the COVID Act Now website daily, analyzing new cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in Fairfax and Loudoun counties. Our criterion for reopening with limited attendance is when those two counties move to the orange category and stay there for 2 weeks. So during the month of February, we will continue with 100% online worship services. However, infection numbers are on the decline, and we are hopeful that this spring will bring us crocus and together. One other thing I want to share. As we understand more about this virus, put in more and more mitigations, understand that we might be living with this even longer, and are aware of the real emotional consequences of separation, we are investigating policies that empower our congregants to make their own risk-based decisions about when to attend church in person. We will keep you updated on our progress in a monthly update that the COVID-19 task force has put together. I also want to bring to your attention the annual meeting in February. Please, everyone, mark your calendars, February 27th, as we will be holding our annual meeting after church. The nomination committee has been very hard at work and is bringing us a wonderful slate of candidates for our church positions. We need a quorum, so it is really important that everyone attend. In addition, there is progress from the HVAC committee, and we will have an update from Jackie Grogan during this meeting. You will receive a written announcement about this meeting in the mail, and I look forward to seeing everyone on Zoom. And my final announcement is about the Settled Minister Search Committee. While we love the energy Reverend Scott brings to us, it is also time to start our Settled Minister Search. In the next couple of weeks, you will receive a questionnaire asking your thoughts about who should represent us on this committee. Please take the time to respond so that we can identify candidates for the Settled Minister Search. Our service today is being led by Reverend Scott Alexander. We are also joined this morning by Linda Weaver, Director of Religious Education, and Jesse Leong, our wonderful accompanist. Music Director Cynthia Young is off today, but she planned the music you will hear in today's service. David Niemi is serving as Worship Associate, and our own Cara Fortner is serving as the Chat Usher. Ron Bracy, David Niemi, Mike Schmitt, and Amelia Turner are running the technical side of worship. Thank you all for participating in today's worship service. Now, let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Let us enter our time of worship together and enjoy Wiegendlied Lullaby by Johannes Brahms, arranged by Carlston Gerlich, performed by our very own Jesse Leong.
Well, good morning, everyone. The day has dawned bright here in Reston this morning. My topic, the spirituality of sleep. The opening words come from a spiritual practice group within the UUA, the Congregation of Abraxas. Great mystery of sleep, which has safely brought us to the beginning of this day, we thank you for the refreshments you daily provide and for the renewing cycle of your dreams, which shelter our fantasies, nourish our vision, and purge our angers and fears. We bless you for providing a new beginning, whose perennial grace is tangible hope for all the children of the earth. We praise the gift of another morning and pray that we may be worthy bearers of its trust in the hours to come. May life protect us and surprise us, and be no more harsh than our spirits may bear, until we rest again in the vast emptiness of your everlasting arms. Welcome to worship.
The opening hymn this morning is number 41, You That Have Spent the Silent Night. The words will be in your chat box, so please sing along. You that have spent the silent night in sleep and quiet rest, and joy to see the cheerful light that rises in the east, that rises in the east. Now lift your hearts, your voices raise, your morning tribute bring. All nature join in grateful praise, rejoice and thanks and sing. Rejoice, give thanks and sing.
Today's chalice lighting words come to us from Frank Claiborne. When the day is over, darkness in the sky, still of lives uncertain, will the lonely cry. Yet we know this one dream, simple, warm, and bright. Love can fill the darkest loneliness with light.
Each Sunday, we intentionally recommit to each other by singing our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church. Please sing along with our congregational and choir virtual video. The words will be in your chat box. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, please accept this as our blessing to you.
Love is the spirit of His church, and service is His prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another in fellowship.
Good morning. Are you ready for the time for all ages? Great. Oh, hi, Hope. Welcome back. You're looking tired this morning. What's that? Oh, you stayed up too late last night watching a movie? I know when I do that, it sounds like a lot of fun, but then I don't feel very good the next morning. My mind just doesn't think as well. My body is slower, and I'm often grumpy with other people. You're feeling like that too today? I've learned that we all need sleep for our bodies to grow and heal and for our minds to be healthy. Oh, you've heard that the American Academy of Pediatrics, and that's made up of doctors for children, right? Yes. And what do they say? Oh, they say that children from 6 to 12 years old need 9 to 12 hours of sleep each night. What? Oh, some doctors say teenagers need even more sleep than that. Why? Oh, because their bodies and brains are growing so fast? Wow. Oh, so they need at least 8 hours of sleep each night? And even better, 9 to 10 hours. Wow. Okay, what else have you learned about sleep? Okay, it's helpful to have a regular bedtime. Avoid caffeine, yes. And that's sodas, coffee, tea. What? Oh, and even chocolate. And especially avoid those late in the day. Yes. Get regular exercise. Okay. And, oh, keep screens and media out of the bedroom. Why is that? Oh, because using those in the evening messes up the signals that tell your brain that it's time to sleep. Those all sound like really good tips. So, what are you going to do today? Oh, you're going to take a nap this afternoon because it's Sunday. Oh, and you're going to get some exercise before dinner. And then make sure to get to bed at your regular bedtime from now on. Those all sound like great ideas. Thank you for sharing what you've learned about sleep, Hope. And sweet dreams tonight to you and to you.
Thank you, Linda. So now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are this morning to mark what is on your heart, as David will light candles here in our sanctuary on Wheatley Avenue. If those of you at home would like to share something in the congregational chat in your Zoom meeting, please write to all attendees, but please remember that what you write is public. Please read each other's joys and sorrows, and then enter into your own time of reflection and prayer as we listen to Jesse play our meditation music. Let us now join together in a spirit of prayer and oneness, spirit of life and love that animates our creation. We are grateful for this community that is faithfully with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all who are grieving, all who face illness, difficulty, or disability themselves, or that of a loved one or friend. Whether shared here this morning or held silently in our hearts, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all here find comfort and calm. Amen. In a few weeks, our stewardship committee will be reaching all the members and friends, asking for their support for our congregation next year. And as a part of that, we have stewardship testimonials from a number of members. Pat Berg is coming in from far western reaches of Virginia this morning. He runs the Hypothermia Project, which provides shelter for people in cold weather, and he's an avid gardener here at UUCR. Pat, take it away.
Hi, my name's Pat Berg, and I've been a member of UUCR for about 5 years. Several years ago, a friend of mine suggested we take a couple of buses to the Women's March, and at that point, I knew nothing about the church, but over time, I learned a lot about the church, and first and foremost, I learned that it was a very welcoming community that allowed me to believe the way I wanted to believe, and that was first and foremost. But over time, I also came to realize that it embraced a lot of very important values that I also think are important, equality, dignity, those kind of things. And a friend of mine once said, same God, different paths, and this church has let me find my own path to my higher power. It's also provided me a platform to help and support and stand up for what I believe in. And if I think of the umbrella of social justice, so much good stuff happens there that I do believe in and that I try to participate in. It's also provided me a conduit to give back to my community and to my church as well. And I think of hypothermia to the little stuff like spreading mulch. So there's a world of activities that have made me feel a part of this organization, and that has helped so much through these hard times of, racial and political unrest and pandemic. And I think of all the activities that go on at the church and how much those mean to me. I think of Helen with the elder care group. I think of Steve in meditation. I think of Eileen with yoga. And I think of the services. I so look forward to the services every Sunday and the sermons, which are so powerful to me, and the beautiful music and the stories for all ages. And I think about Beth, the glue that holds all this together from the office. And I do know that it takes a lot of volunteers to do this, but I also know it takes staff and facilities to do this as well. So when it's time for me to give, I give willingly because I know every dollar is going to be well spent. That's what this church means to me. Thanks and have a great day.
We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to our collection plate at the link on the side and in the chat box. This donation is separate from your pledge payment and helps support the running of our church, which includes paying our staff, the mortgage, utilities, and other expenses. Thank you for your generosity and support of our beloved spiritual home.
That was so beautiful. The reading before the sermon is by an unnamed physician and practicing Christian, so those of you for whom traditional theological language is a problem, you may have to do a bit of translating. It is from a December 2021 edition of Relevant magazine, and this Christian physician writes, "Sleeping can be one of the most spiritual things you can do. Controversial? Yes, but I believe so. I first heard this idea from John Ortberg, a teaching pastor at my church, a few years ago, and I'm still thinking about it. The church was talking about sleep, and I found it refreshing and somewhat revolutionary. The medical world seems to acknowledge the importance of sleep long before the church has. I practice medicine, and I am constantly talking to my patients about the importance of being well rested. People who do not sleep well or consistently are more likely to catch viruses, struggle with anxiety and depression, and often have issues with their weight. Fatigue can affect our focus and concentration, resulting in workers and students that are unable to perform their full potential. Weariness," he goes on, "has a far-reaching physical, emotional, and economic effect. But what I find fascinating and discussed much less frequently is the relational and spiritual side of sleeplessness. I see it in my own life. Not being well rested affects my ability to love my husband and my neighbor. It's hard to be gentle, patient, and self-controlled when I'm running on empty. And my relationship with God, it seems nearly impossible to discern God's guidance, hear and obey God's voice, or even pray when I'm so fatigued it takes all my energy to make just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It is possible," she goes on, "that the best way to love your spouse or prepare your heart for worship is to fulfill our body's God-given need for rest." And then she goes on, "It's an issue of lifestyle. Do we as Christians have enough space in our lives to meet our body's basic needs, have a relationship with God, and love our family and friends? Can we do the latter two without paying attention to the first? I sometimes find it frustrating that the Christian community can be so disassociated from physical things, even our own bodies. Just as God has given us moral boundaries to live within that produce a peaceful and joyful life, there are also physical boundaries that should frame our choices. Although spiritual beings, we inhabit human bodies that are designed to function within certain limits, one of which," she ends, "is sufficient rest on a daily basis. This allows us to love and serve God ever more fully." Here ends the morning reading. I want to begin the sermon by telling you a story about the hazards of being a preacher in our liberal tradition. 15 years ago now, when I was senior minister over at the River Road Church in Bethesda, I went through a difficult period of several months when I was having trouble sleeping, due primarily to my stress and worry. This disruption of my usual robust sleep pattern became a significant problem for me and got me thinking about the importance of sleep to our human health and well-being. So along the lines of "Physician, heal thyself," I decided to preach on the topic of spirituality and sleep to see if I couldn't get a better handle on my own personal insomnia and discover some way to rediscover and regain a healthy pattern of sleep, not to mention helping my listeners over in Bethesda perhaps to do the same. Well, wouldn't you know it, that no sooner had I announced the sermon topic about 3 weeks ahead when one of the, shall I say, more aggressive and unpleasant members of that church wrote me an angry email basically chastising me ahead of time, mind you, for wasting the congregation's time with, quote, "such a trivial and unimportant topic." After a day's reflection, I wrote back to her saying, "Thanks for sharing your perspective, but don't you think you should just hold off your criticism of my sermon at least until after you've heard it? Never before in my ministry, and mercifully never since, has anyone ever criticized me for a sermon before I've even delivered it. I'm not complaining, mind you, but dear God, what an amazing profession the UU ministry can be. Criticized for words you haven't even yet spoken. Then, as if to make matters worse, I was not comforted several days later when I began working on the sermon, so I Googled the phrase, the spirituality of sleep, sure that lots of helpful references would pop up. Doesn't Google have everything? I got one single hit on Google, and it was referencing my sermon title in the River Road newsletter that had already been posted to the web. This did not comfort me. I actually began in that harrowing moment to think that maybe my parishioner, my judgmental, critical parishioner, might be right, for apparently nothing had ever been written on the spirituality of sleep. I got a little scared, thinking maybe I was barking up a trivial and irrelevant tree. Well, to make a long story short, I went ahead and wrote and preached that sermon, which turned out mercifully to be very well received by a congregation. Indeed, several parishioners immediately came up to me that day after the sermon, literally with tears in their eyes, expressing how grateful they were that their minister had addressed this topic, which had been of deep personal and pressing importance to them for a long time. And so the first question I would ask all of you listening to me today is, how about sleep? What is sleep is an issue in your life? And if it is, how can you make it a positive issue? To this day, I believe this is an important topic for any congregation of UUs or Methodists or anybody else to explore. Indeed, the reason I'm revisiting this topic, and after 15 years in Reston, is that over the recent months I've been with you as your minister, many of you have told me that the stresses and strains of life right now, what with COVID and the rest of the craziness and tensions in American life these days, that you personally have had trouble getting enough restful, good sleep. And here's the fun and amazing thing. This time, when I went to Google the spirituality of sleep, dozens of articles and pieces, and go Google it. Google the spirituality of sleep. Take a look. There's a wealth of stuff out there. In the last 15 years, this has become a topic. Even the Dalai Lama has written about the importance of sleep. There's a video that you may find with Adriana Harrington and the Dalai Lama talking about this. So, with all this said, let's get to the topic at hand, and let me begin right where it touches me personally. When I can't sleep and can't get at least 7 hours of that delicious stuff, it complicates and diminishes my living. On nights when sleep comes hard to me, and personally, I don't usually have all that much trouble falling asleep. What bothers me is when I wake up at 2 o'clock, wide awake, and cannot go back to sleep. And because of what the Buddhists call monkey mind, I wake up at 2 and my monkey mind kicks into gear, and I'm thinking about all the problems I have at work or in my family or whatever else or in the nation, and I find myself unable to fall back to sleep, thus depriving myself on those nights. When those happen, by the way, I do try to say to myself, well, I'm not sleeping right now, but at least I'm resting. And I try to relax my limbs and my body as much as I can. As I researched the broader topic of sleep, it turns out that I am not alone in suffering occasional insomnia. Sleep scientists, and as you know, there are lots of them, lots of medical and scientific people are out there working on this human problem. Sleep scientists tell us that insomnia, the inability to sleep and therefore the failure to get proper rest, is a phenomenon that at some times or another affects an overwhelming majority of human beings. Although I do not have a live audience this morning, I'll bet if I have all of you at home, if sleep, insomnia is an issue for you, raise your hand to yourself and let yourself know. My guess is that a majority of us here in Reston have sleep issues. And DC doesn't help matters at all. Living here outside the Beltway, it doesn't help. Now, this afternoon, soon after the service, Beth, our administrator, is going to be sending you the links to 5 practical lists of helpful tips for better sleep provided by academic experts. Here are the links, but I don't expect you to be able to write them down. You're going to get an email from us if you're a member or a friend. And if you don't, email us at church and we'll send them to you. Now, there is a consensus and overlap on these various lists about what makes for better sleep. But there's a lot of really good tips. Let me just, this list is from the University of Maryland. I just want to quickly read. They have 10 tips for better sleep. I'm just going to give you the titles. Minimize distractions, avoid caffeine, minimize alcohol consumption. It's a stimulant as well as a depressant. Develop a routine around sleep. Establish a regular bedtime. Create a safe space for sleep. Use your bed exclusively for sleep. No eating Doritos or watching television or glued to the internet. Power down the electronics. Practice relaxation techniques. There are a lot of those. And avoid lying in bed awake. They say to get up and try to read for a little while and then get back to sleep. In any case, take a look at all these lists of healthy sleep habits. And if you don't have the links, just Google healthy sleep habits. They'll all pop up. And they'll help you, some of these tips, to get more restful sleep. And by all means, let me counsel that if all these self-help techniques don't enable you to get a better night's sleep on a regular basis, please seek out some professional help. You may not know there are 15 sleep clinics here in Northern Virginia. Some are very close. I don't know about their quality. Friends, there can be absolutely no doubt about the importance of good and adequate sleep for our health and wholeness as human beings. If you Google the word sleep, hundreds of scientific articles pop up pointing, as Linda pointed out, to the absolute importance of getting 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep every day. One of those articles, written by Dr. Ivan Harris Zahns, defines sleep this way. Sleep is defined as a state of unconsciousness from which a person can be aroused, as opposed to a coma from which a person cannot be aroused. Sleep is an active process within the brain where neurons, nerve cells, either stimulate or inhibit different parts of the brain. It serves as a restorative process, essential for normal human health, affecting the daily activities and functions of the body systems, including the immune system and even one's mental health. He goes on, sleep is imperative for nervous systems to function properly. Without it, our immune system would be unable to properly fight infection or endure illness. And then he concludes, sleep is a basic necessity of life. Like drinking water and eating food, we all need sleep to be healthy, and to face the daily struggles of life. And Dr. Michael Breus, writing on the medical site WebMD, reports that sleep deprivation has broad consequences which affect the quality, joy, attentiveness, and safety of our lives. Numerous studies conclude that when we fail to get enough sleep on a daily basis, we suffer decreased performance and alertness in our lives. We experience memory and cognitive impairment, which reduces our ability to think and remember and process information well. And we are often unable to enjoy activities that require sustained attention, like going to a movie, seeing our children or grandchildren in a school play, or watching a favorite TV show. And he writes, relationships with family and friends can also be negatively affected by the moodiness and irritability sleep deprivation often carries with it. When we are sleep deprived, he writes, we are much more prone to occupational and automobile injury. I had an uncle who fell asleep driving once because he was burning candle at the both ends. And as if all this weren't dangerous and unpleasant enough, sleep disorders can lead to a whole series of serious medical illnesses, like high blood pressure, heart attacks and strokes, blood sugar imbalances, obesity and psychiatric problems like depression, and it can even lead to ADD, attention deficit disorder. On the positive side of the sleep occasion, Psychologists who study human happiness report that folks who regularly get a good night's sleep are happier and report a much higher level of personal well-being. As Dr. Kahneman writes of his study, getting enough sleep routinely led to a happier and more emotionally stable life. Some of you may be aware of the report of new sleep research, which reveals that, and now I quote it, while the brain sleeps, it clears out harmful toxins, a process that may reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. During sleep, the flow of cerebrospinal fluid increases dramatically, washing away harmful waste proteins that build up between brain cells during working hours. It's like a dishwasher. Dr. Niergaard, a professor of neurosurgery at the University of Rochester in New York, says, he says, the results appear to offer the best explanation yet of why animals and people, well, we are animals, need sleep. Indeed, sleep is so important that intentionally depriving someone of sleep is one of the most effective ways known to torture a human being, literally torture them. When President Barack Obama, who was and is opposed to torture, took office, his administration released a list of the heinous techniques that the previous, and dare I say, morally challenged Bush administration used to torture enemy combatants. And near the top of that list of torture techniques was sleep deprivation. It turns out that our military and CIA regularly used sleep deprivation, simply forcing a prisoner to stay awake for days on end to break down both his humanity and their will. That's how fundamental and important the restorative power of sleep is. We human beings simply cannot maintain our humanity or identity for long without it. So, dear friends, there's no question that a good night's sleep is crucial to our physical and emotional health. Look, every once in a while, we can sneak by burning the candle at both ends and getting only a few nights' sleep, maybe for a night or two. But chronic sleep deprivation, day in and day out, either because of bad lifestyle choices that we make, which deprive us of this, or insomnia, which haunts us with an unwelcomed awakeness while we are trying to get to sleep, chronic sleep deprivation has incredibly powerful negative effects on our living. Said positively. And now I will use a simple graphic chart that I drew. Excuse my hand scrawling here. Sleep isn't it? Well, I guess you've got it up there on the screen, so I'm going to put this down. Sleep is a necessary part of life, and a balanced life should show that we equally pay attention, give about a third of our life to sleep, a third to work, whatever that means for you. If you're retired, it's working around the home, working on the internet. And then the third category, leisure and, what have I got there? Leisure and logistics. Leisure and logistics, things like going to the grocery store, washing your dishes. So a balanced life should have work, leisure and logistics, and at least as much sleep as those other two things. If we are to lead lives of vitality, balance, and joy, we must ensure that sleep gets equal footing with these other dimensions. It was Smokey Bear who used to remind us only you can prevent forest fires. What I'm reminding you this morning is only you can practice the good daily lifestyle habits that will enable you to get a good, restful, and restorative night's sleep. But enough of the obvious physical and emotional dimensions of sleep, and medical doctors can tell you about those. What about my topic, the spirituality of sleep? Well, I am passionately persuaded that just as our bodies and minds regularly need the restoring, refreshing balm of sleep, so do our spirits and our souls. Let me put this a bit differently. As this morning's reading before the sermon affirmed, without regular and adequate sleep, surely it's impossible to have the deep, satisfying relationships with self, with nature, with family and friends, neighbors and co-workers, and even with God, however you understand the greater mystery of life. It's impossible to have good relationships without sleep. And our religion in particular, Unitarian Universalist, is very relational. It's all about our building right and caring relationships with life around you. I love Charles Laura's simple poem, which alludes to the many of sleep's deep and holy places. He writes in this poem, "Sleep, sleep, sleep, deep, magnificent sleep cradles me like a mother holding her newborn. For the first time, I close my eyes and feel the warm sensation of precious, pure sleep, immortal sleep outside of a mixed-up world. Sweet vanilla scent from dreams of beauty, holding me forever, brings me everything I need to stay. Sleep, sleep, sleep." So sleep each night, good sleep, carries us into the deep, deep, dark, and holy embrace of unconsciousness and rest. And how do we human beings connect with life's deep and holy and healing places when we are awake? The beauty of nature, the glory of love, the blessings of stillness, the depths of satisfaction and being that naturally reside within us. How do we connect up with those living things? The answer is primarily, of course, through mindfulness. Everyday mindfulness, which I talk about regularly from this pulpit. The ability to and the practice of paying keen attention to the world and persons that are always close at hand once we wake from sleep each morning. It must be profoundly obvious that if we do not regularly receive the healing balm of sleep, those 7 or 8 hours of the day when we loosen our grip on the demands and duties of our lives so that we can awaken the next day ready and refreshed, we will not be able to mindfully focus our attentions on nature, on family and friends, on neighbors and co-workers, and the endless richness of the world, which constantly seeks to bless us by coming in through our eyes and ears and nose and throat, our fingertips. Look, the spiritual truth, as I said earlier, is that a tired person is a distracted person. And a distracted person cannot mentally or spiritually focus on the rich and wondrous textures and opportunities of the world and daily life, period. When I was researching this sermon, I stumbled across the writings of one self-proclaimed guru who was bragging about his deep and profound personal spirituality. And he boasted because of his tireless devotion to meditation and God, he only needed 1 hour of sleep in every 24, which enabled him, he reported, to devote fully 23 hours to the pure contemplation of God. This is horsepucky. I don't like to contradict pure and lofty gurus, but this is impossible, self-deluding nonsense to me. I believe that any human being, wired as we are, for a mixture of both physical and mental activity and physical and mental rest, no one can properly function physically, mentally, morally, or spiritually on 1 or even 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. If we are to experience when we are awake the kind of daily mindfulness which will truly bless us. And there's even another way of understanding the holiness and importance of sleep. In the Talmud, the ancient Jewish scripture, it is written that our active hours as human beings must be preceded by the minor death of sleep. This led the Hasidic leader, Lubavitcher Rebbe, to explain, if we didn't sleep, there would be no tomorrow. Life would be a single, seamless day. Our every thought and deed would be an outgrowth of all the previous thoughts, and deeds. Therefore, without sleep, there would be no new beginnings in our lives, for the very concept of new beginning would be alien to us. And then Jewish writer Yankee Tauber reflects further. Sleep means that we have the capacity not only to improve, but to transcend ourselves, to open a new chapter that is neither predicted or enabled by what we did or were up until now. Sleep, he writes, enables us to free ourselves of yesterday's constraints to build a new recreated self. And then he concludes, God creates the world anew every millisecond of time. If we are God's partners in creation, as the Talmud says we are, we should be able to do that at least once a day. So wake up tomorrow, he writes, wake up and start anew. And Rabbi Noah Weinberg, I found lots of stuff on the spirituality of sleep in Jewish writings. He says, never treat sleep as an end to itself. Do not look at sleep as the reward for a hard day's work. Sleep gives you a chance to be re-energized in your life. Look at sleep as a way to recharge your batteries for a new day of growth. I love the spiritual idea that the simple act of falling asleep each night functions in our lives in wonderful, restful cycles to create in us regular new beginnings that allow us to become fully and finally human. Surely there is not a person within earshot of me this morning who has not on many evenings gone to bed feeling somewhat battered or burdened by all the stresses and strains, problems and failures, complications and challenges of daily life. Sometimes I go to bed saying, oh, thank God I can go to bed and make this day end. And then only to awaken the next morning feeling amazingly rested and restored with fresh energy and new insight. You know, at 10 o'clock at night, we sometimes run out of new insight. But in the morning, we wake up, we have new insight on the duties and demands to which we must return. It is not, of course, that sleep somehow magically takes away all the complications and challenges of our lives, but rather it is that the state of sleep, wherein we are rendered unconscious and therefore forced to loosen our grip on all the agita and irritation of our waking lives, it is sleep that allows our minds and hearts to take a restful and restorative time out so that we can arise from the night when the sun does with renewed and re-energized spirits, if not even sometimes completely reborn. Now, I will grant you that sometimes our dreams during our sleeping hours reflect our subconscious efforts to continue to work on the life issues that are confronting us. I have anxiety dreams as a minister. I sometimes wake up with these horrible dreams about my making terrible mistakes at work, not being able to find my sermon, not being able to get to somebody. All of us have these kinds of dreams, work dreams and family dreams, that reflect the worries that have occupied us while we are awake. But sleep, even with the occasional unwanted busyness and complications and darkness of our dreams, sleep allows, it even insists, that our bodies, our minds, and our souls set aside what stresses and strains them. So we can arise in the morning with renewed energy and renewed enthusiasm for our life, even as the complications of it continue. So in conclusion, dear friends, please do not foolishly regard sleep as some pointless, unconscious, trivial part of each 24-hour day that we simply have to get through. That's apparently what my sermon critic back in Bethesda thought. Sleep was meaningless. Rather, think of sleep as a simple and holy gift of fully human being, a simple and holy gift of human being that by mercifully releasing us, if but for a while, from all the mishigas of our waking life, enables us to arise the next morning and to be present to and and in the full richness of our days. It is very meaningful sleep. I take it on faith that life for us as human beings was not meant to be some eternally joyless, seamless drudgery that we simply slog our exhausted way through day after day after day after day. Life for us as precious creatures of earth was rather meant to be, I think, a grand purpose, a grand adventure, I should say, of purpose, depth, awareness, and joy. A grand adventure of purpose, depth, awareness, and joy, where each morning we awake, we embrace life and persons around us with as much energy and enthusiasm and joyful care as we can. So, cherish, nurture, protect, and enjoy your sleep, dear friends. For sleep whispers life into the ear of your soul, and it is the holy harbinger of the sweet and precious day that is always about to dawn. Sleep. Amen. Our closing hymn.
Thank you, Reverend Scott. Closing hymn is number 409, Sleep, My Child. The words will be in your chat box for verses 1 and 3, so please sing along with me. Sleep, my child, and peace attend you all through the night. I who love you shall be near you all through the night. Soft the drowsy hours are creeping, heal and veil in slumber sleeping. I, my loving vigil keeping all through the night. While the moon her watch is keeping all through the night, while one half the world is sleeping all through the night, even while the sun comes stealing, visions of the day revealing, breathes a pure and holy feeling all through the night, all through the night.
And I leave you today with more words about the importance of sleep from the congregation of Abraxas. Sweet Spirit of sleep, who brings peace and rest to weary bodies, empty us of aches and pains, for we struggle as seeds through the unyielding earth. Bring us to the timeless nature of your presence, the endless void of our slumber. Make us aware of the work we can do while in your time. Make us to know our dreaming, where past and future are reconciled. Come, let us honor sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care, the death of each day's life, sore labor's bath, balm of hurt minds, great nature's second course, chief nourisher in life's feast. Enjoy the day. Oh, and get a good night's sleep tonight. Amen.
The postlude is an arrangement of the traditional song Rockabye Baby by Jim Brickman. I hope you enjoy.
We invite our congregants to join us on Zoom for our virtual Greet Your Neighbor coffee hour today and discuss the service theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. The link is in the chat box and on the upcoming slide. Also, please use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for the worship service today. Go and have a great day. I heard Reverend Scott ask me to take a nap today, and I'm going to take him up on that. So have a wonderful day.